Hi, I've been watching Cashify lately, and I saw this other guy, and I subscribed to some of these channels. This guy was talking, young guy, about being a spiritual guy, and he said a lot of well-intentioned, cool things, but it's just funny, this kind of spirituality that idolizes, dissolving into the universe, or seeing the lack of separation, where all distinctions fall apart, and you see that everything is an illusion and nothing's worth believing in, and sort of visualizing the zero meaning calmness. This has a relationship to skepticism. Piero of Elis, my handle namesake, went with Alexander the Great to the East, talked with Indian scholars, and brought back some of these ideas and made a Western kind of version, skepticism, incorporating some of these same things that are in the tradition that lead now these Western adopters through a different historical route. They've adopted some of these Indian ideas, let's call them, but he brought it back, made it kind of a part of a more traditional. Even though it's a subculture of philosophy, it had a huge influence, and is definitely a westernized version, which I've gone into. But anyway, it does relate it, and Piero's advice was that if you accept things the way they are, you will have adorasia, or calmness of your heart, tranquility of your soul, by accepting things the way they are. And this is kind of on this Buddhist or Hindu spirituality wavelength. There's elements of, it's how you deal with your desires and stuff, basically. I mean, accepting things the way they are, putting in your mind of, okay, it has to be this way, and even if you're telling yourself a story, psychologically, cognitively, that has an effect on your desire, right? If you convince yourself things have to be a certain way, it'll alleviate your desire. Even then, when the desire remains, it becomes, it looks like an illusion. You can feel it, but like an optical illusion. You might see the illusion, but no, oh yeah, but that one's an illusion. And you can. So this is a practical thing, but I think there's a whole other spectrum that relates to this metaphor of in the center or the periphery. I feel like these, I don't know what I want to call them, because I don't think it's exactly Hinduism or Buddhism as it is in the cultures that have had those religions for centuries and centuries. I want to call it West Easternism or something. But anyway, there's this idea that in this circle of sort of your spiritual journey, in other words, okay, let's put it this way. This is the spectrum of psychologically, how could you feel better? You could just accept things the way they are. But as a Westerner, the feeling better is not worth accepting fucked up crap the way it is, right? Okay. So on this, that's a separate question then than the spiritual path of how can I learn more? Things are changing. I don't want things to stay this way they are now. I don't want to die and end it and be the perfecto finished product that I will eventually be. And I have this issue of where's the spiritual path? What's the center of this forward-going spiritual path? And it's the place with the most wind energy for the sails. And I feel like they're thinking that, Cashify, that your kind of thing is that the center is this state of there's no distinctions or anything. That's the ultimate. Accepting things the way they are is accepting their fundamental unintelligibility. Instead of going, well, hey, I can't perfectly make sense of this stuff, but I can organize what I can organize. Maybe it's this perfect accepting the impossibility even of sorting data. But that's not the center of your spiritual path. Right? Being at that point will not bring you forward. You're going to be having lucid dreams where the fantasies and urges that you fulfill in those dreams are stuck at your current spiritual state, and you are not progressing. Right? So that's the problem. Yes, we can all know how to get adorasia, but that's not the spiritual center. Adorasia is on the periphery. It's on the circumference of the circle. That's your calm resting place. It's where you can take time to catch up with a stream of information that, in principle, you can never keep up with, right? You're getting so much information you can't keep up with it. It's not even all the information striking your body. Like what you see is just this little tiny bit of light, and you got light hitting everywhere. Okay, the center of that spiritual circle is the fountain of the senses, but really I want the senses to be a waterfall there. It's more like a waterfall, but I have a very strong metaphorical mind. I can invent a metaphor, so I want it to be a fountain. So it's a fountain that's like Stromboli and huge. It's like a fountain that's as strong as a waterfall, and that's the senses and all our feelings. And it's not the senses like eyes, the 5 classical senses. It's all our emotionals. You know, and at that point, it's the opposite. Nothing has any meaning. Everything has meaning. That's that point I've been discussing with the schizophrenic possibilities. Like, am I introspective, or am I just somebody that can't help but notice this fountain flooding through me? Have I just moved do I just have a map where I know where that place is, and I can flood myself in that, and then leave and go to the adoragic spot and with my notebooks and think it all over before I go back and fill my cup again? The flood of senses is where everything has meaning, right? That, like the schizophrenic situation, you know, a phrase that might mean something in a different context to you that you hear on the radio or TV, it does have that meaning for you. At that fountain where all the emotions come out, everything has meaning. If I were to idealize it like you guys do, where you think you could get to a point where nothing has meaning, and I think you can only rarefy it, but there's always a meaning. It's the opposite. Everything has meaning. So people that want spiritual happiness, the sad thing is they run away from this point, because in that point is all of their fears, all of their self-esteems, all of their sexual hang-ups, all of their just sexual habits that they have hang-ups, thinking that they're hang-ups, and they're not really. It's all in that point. So somebody that wants to bliss out and go, look, oh my God, we should all own our shit together, they have a problem wanting to go to this place that, you know, that the Hemingways and the Pablo Picassos and the poets know about, where you're brave enough to dive into this river of emotion, where your strength of will to navigate the flow makes you brave enough to go into this whitewater flow that it can't always be navigated. And we see a lot of these poet types, artists, seize the day types. You know, they do crash and burn, but they find things there because this is the fountain of meaning. This is what gives us energy in our life. This is the real point, and the irony, the absurdity, you know, the fact that Camus is the describer of our world, is that there is no one place you can go sit for your spiritual well-being, right? There's a territory, a soul, a territory of the mind. As a materialist, I think that I'm just talking about our psychological landscape. This is how the brain has a psychological landscape in a virtual reality that is the only reality we know. It's created for us some way, or we create it, or whatever. But the point is, it's our stage, and it's not a single point, and there is no magic little point at it, and you have to go fill your cup with meaning. And then, yeah, there's so much meaning there, you have to leave and think about it. And you should keep it all in reference, and you should never say, just because you're carrying water to the outskirts where you're going to drink it, you should never tell everybody, hey, we should always be leaving with our water. When you're going back to get more water, hey, we should always be going back to get more water to carry. We should be sitting in the fountain. We should be swimming. We should be... There's a whole territory, right? And the territory where you're like, there's no distinctions and I perfectly accepted everything. That's akin to death. That's the immobile point. Okay. To make progress on your particular journey, you have to put the origin where it really is, which is the fountain of your own emotional being. And I think you can figure out cognitive tricks and powers, Cashify. And it can be bad for you. Because, yeah, you could start lucid dreaming and then just refeed yourself what you think you need right now. But why do you think you're done? Why do you think you can stop right now? You have to go into that strong flow where everything has meaning. Where there's so much illusion, you can't even ask if it's illusion. Everything's real. Illusion's real. Known illusions are real. Illusions of illusions of illusions. It all seems real to you. And it's frightening because you know intellectually and you've discovered from these other locations, well, no, it's not real. But you have time. All you need is a way to go in and climb back out, right? So that you don't drown. Yeah, but don't blame the water for the drowning, right? Alright, cheers. Okay, let me sum up on the whole schizophrenia thing. So, now I went through an experience, and I originally made a video about the realization I had, and then I felt it was too personal. I'm like, forget that. And the schizophrenia stuff was just leading up to it. Just leading up to it. So I don't know what order to put this in, so let me just tell you. I find when I'm thinking over something in my mind, let's say I'm looking for, I have some angst about something, or every time I think about a particular person or kind of situation, it reminds me of things, it gives me a feeling, and I'm going, what is that all about? And so I start looking, and often in the path to find that out, you get distracted, totally aren't even thinking about that, and you have to remind yourself, oh yeah, and you're trying to navigate. And what I find out is that right before the solution, the place in your mind, metaphorically, I mean, thinking about things is moving around this territory, and any feeling you have as a result of a thought is some location. There's a place, a feeling somewhere in your mind where you can have release about that. You can understand it and release it. Okay. Now, mind you, there's a lot of places in your mind where you could go, you could write down what happened. Like, let's say you figure out that angst is about a person, and you have a memory, and it was like one time when you were a little kid, you wanted your mommy to give you a goodnight kiss and she didn't, and for some reason it stuck in your head, and as you grew older you knew that's not a big deal, but emotionally some little part was holding on to this. Now there's a lot of places in your mind where you could realize you went through that, you know, and you could write down on a piece of paper the very same exact sentence about what happened, but you'd be feeling a little different about it. There's this one place where you can see it. You could write down that sentence, you could write down a much better poem version, and more importantly, you could feel release. Release of it. Yeah, there it goes. And right before you get to that point, there's a fear. It's wrapped in a fear. A fear has been protecting that. And the fear doesn't even have to relate to the person or anything. It could be scary faces. I mean, it could literally be when you get close to this emotional release, you, for some reason, picture these scary monsters and you start thinking about something else. Your mind does this to itself, if it's my mind. I'm pretty sure it happens to you guys. You behave like it. You don't even know it's happening. Okay, who knows? Okay, so the schizophrenia thing was this fear circle around a realization. As soon as I'd been thinking about my introspective nature, my theory that we all have our brains working this way and it's our filtering ability, and sorting that out and thinking about that, and then I had this realization that maybe I just have schizophrenia. And I could have written that idea down many times over the years, but I had it with a different feeling, like, no, like literally that could be true. So I you know, that there would be no way, and I felt right then like I'd gone through a gate, a pre-release, a gate, you know, and I realized that none of that schizophrenia stuff mattered. Now it was all interesting. I decided to make a video about that, the interesting parts of that, because the release allows you to think of things. But I'd finally come to this, and it's an old fear that maybe I'm crazy. You know, I want to be a philosopher and know what I'm doing, but maybe I'm crazy. What if I'm crazy doing philosophy? What possible use could it be to say my philosophy, or as a philosophy? But now, 44, I just came to it as an analytic information processing, emotional information processing question. And then when I realized, oh, you know what, I can't tell the difference. There really is no way for me to know, and it doesn't matter, because what I see is what I see, and it's my personal experience, unique, can't be characterized. Sanity and insanity doesn't really pertain in the way one might think. But it's still an interesting question, that's why I brought it up. But really, its meaning was tabled. It's on a plateau of its own limited domain. It's not affecting everything, right? It's a sub-issue all of a sudden. Instead of a big issue of are you sane or not, it's now just a sub-issue of like, is this interesting? And it sort of cleared. And then I had this thought. It was about the warrior spirit. I hate this idea. There's a book called The Spiritual Warrior, and I've always hated this, because to me it's like, it's this tendency of let's have a war on everything that we don't like. A war on poverty, a war on drugs, a war on cancer, a war on, you know, let's have a health on cancer and have a health on, you know what I mean? It's like, you know what I mean? You guys, liberals at least know, it's a war on everything. It's a wrong metaphor. It's not, just because you don't like something doesn't mean war, jihad, you know? What the hell? But the realization I had was that maybe it was just misnamed. Maybe there's a spirit, this warrior spirit, and that's just an insulting name. It's a name that happened. Like, what if there was see, fighting? I don't want to call it fighting. There's just, what's a better word for this spirit? Because there is an archetype, just like there's a poet archetype, you know, and people in a poetical mode, and there's this analytic engineering kind of archetype, and, you know, the Greek gods could be archetypes, and I don't believe in saying there are these 7 archetypes, kind of a Jungian thing, but I do believe that there are these archetypes, and they can probably form and whatnot. And there is this, like the hero, a rescue worker. Or in my own case, somebody fell off a branch in the dark one time when we were hiking around a river, and I just, you know, jumped right in where I heard the sound. You know, it was pitch black, and that kind of urge, okay, is the feeling I'm talking. Just doesn't care. It's just going to do with risk to its own life. What if that urge got infected with the idea that it could just take the easy out? It's just like, hey, strong self, you're the one you're the personality that doesn't care, that's willing to use violence. So you are the violent one. And that's why we've lost them in our society. That spirit is evil, violent. But when it's non-violent, you know, when it's peaceful resistance only, well, maybe this is the problem, that's the part that's sick, that we need to release, but it needs a better name. I'm not going to want to call it warrior, but I did have a release of my fear of that spirit, like that spirit had to be chained to make sure that it wouldn't wreak havoc. And I feel I'm at rest with it now. I'm not worried it's going to wreak havoc. I'm not like a convert. Now that I'm a skeptic, when I change opinions, I don't become a new devotee. I don't become a priest in the new religion. I'm not going to say, yeah, that's the most important thing now. You know, I'm not going to turn my rejection of it into some sort of a super hyper adoption. I believe in being cautious with this mentality, but I don't feel my fear of it, and I see maybe what some of these people are trying to go with when they're trying to tap into that. But I just think we have thousands of years, if not hundreds of thousands of years of malady afflicting this spirit, and it's prone to certain kinds of maladies, and it may actually be the most delicate spirit, and yet we can't treat it delicately because it's like this boss, and we need to figure out how to heal it, right? And how to re-put it in service instead of trying to be the king. Like, I'm the violent one, so I'll run the show of this spiritual landscape. We need to turn it into, like, I'm the rescue worker. I'm going to be there when there's a burning building. I'm one guy who wants to be there. I'm not just going to jump into the pitch black water because my friend fell in. I'm going to hang out down there just in case anybody does. I'm going to be a lifeguard. And what's a better word for that? I don't want to say heroic because I don't want to beef up its its ego and make it think it's all that. It's not always heroic. That's the thing. This spirit does things beyond good and evil where it doesn't know it. This is when you also accidentally do a terrible thing and you think you were doing something good. So, but I don't want to call it a warrior. I don't want to. I want to divorce it of all violent metaphor